The alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digital brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk.
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
Looking for a pair of shoes? Let's Up Stores has a wide range of selection for unisex footwear. We have the best quality of all brands at pocket-friendly prices, and we make deliveries countrywide. Just place your order or reach us on 0772 08 0090. You can also check up at Let's Up Stores on all our social media platforms. Let's Up, craft your own footprints.
The alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Machama lungi gumunanga kide nafe olunaku olwaleero olunaku lwakuna ennaku z'omwezi tubala 25 omwezi tuli mu gwa May omwaka 2023 babuzaako yena bye musinzidde okubanga mutulaba program The Mighty Drive jogenda maaso n'okubanga olaba nze omumbejja Luwedde Lilian okubanga ate nkutuusaako akanyomero kano ke tulimu aka Mighty Global News Updates. Munnange akanyomero kano wekanaawunzikira ngenda kuba negatibwako munnange Roger Studio Habwe bwe tugenda okuba nga tukola program y'olunaku olwaleero okutuukira ddala te ku ssaawa 4 ez'akalasamayanze. Olunaku olwaleero nga bwe nkutegeezeza ennaku z'omwezi ziri 25 omwezi tulimu Gwakutaano. Kakati bwe bwali bwe buti emyaka 6 egiyise omukago gwa African Union awo nno munnange we gwatandikira okubanga gufoomingibwa ekyava ku kuba nti 32 heads of states munnange begatta ne bagenda mu Addis Ababa munnange ne babaako olukuŋŋaana lwe beetabamu ate ne babaako ensonga ez'enjawulo ze boogerako awo nno ate omukago guno ogwa African Union we gwava okubanga gufoomingibwa. Edda no teyali African Union wabula yali Organization of the African Union. So tugenda kuba twogera ku byafaayo ebigikwatako mu ddakiika ate eziddako nga maze okubanga mbawa ebimu ku ebyo ebikoze amawulire oba ebyakoze amawulire wano mu ggwanga Uganda n'ebitundu by'eggwanga ebyenjawulo. So neegattaako we nnaawunzikira amawulire gaffe ate ojja kubanga owulira emboozi ezo bulungi nnyo. Era nga tugenda kuba twegattibwako ne Professor LUMUMBA ate naye ayongera okutuwa highlights ku lunaku luno olwaleero lwe tujaguza ate munnange osobole okubanga naawe otegera bingi nnyo byeweetaaga okubanga omanya. Twogera nno kuki ku mukago ogwa African Union. So tugenda kuba twogera ku nsonga ez'enjawulo lwaki omukago guno gwafoomingibwa ye abaffe ebigendererwa byagwo okuba nti munnange guteekebwawo munnange bituukiddwako oba ate bikoleddwako n'ebirala bingi nnyo bye tugenda okuba nga twogerako. Naye nga nze Omumbejja Luwedde Lilian ngenda kuba nga nkutwalako mu bimu ku ebyo byakoze amawulire bwe tunaaba tuvuddeyo ate Mighty Drive olwo nno yeeyongereyo. Kakati ngenda kuba nga ntandika ne Ssaabasumba owaba Orthodox wano mu ggwanga erya Uganda ono nno nga ye Geronimus Muzeeyi bwe yabadde olunaku olw'eggulo ku kkanisa ya St Nicholas Cathedral Namuŋŋoona. Ono nno munnange yatabukidde abakuumaddembe abasusse okubanga munnange beekuba amasasi olwo nno ate ne batwaliramu ne bannansi kubanga munnange bano nno ate munnange ekyokola kye bagezaako okubanga bakola kyandeza Uganda mu biseera ate ebyayita era munnange n'abategeeza nti munnange bakyuseemu ku bikolwa bino nti tuyinza okudda ate mu biseera ebyabasibiramu bbwa ebyo nno munnange ate ebyatuusa ne amagye okubanga galumba olubiri lwa Buganda ogwo nno omwaka gwali 1966 munnange bw'atyo nno munnange byabategeezeza nti babeerenga ate munnange beddako ku bikolwa bino bye bagenda mu maaso n'okubanga bakola. Kakati agiweredde ddala emyaka 57 bukyanga Kawenkene Milton Obote alagira musajja we Idi Amin Dada okubanga munnange alumba olubiri era nga ekigendererwa ekyokulumba olubiri kyekyokutta Ssekabaka Muteesa munnanga bwago nno munnange amawulire bwe gatyo bwe gabadde naye nga okusaba kuno kwabaddemu ebikonge ebyenjawulo nga muno nno mu boogatta ate eyaliko Katikkiro wa Buganda Mulwanyamuli Ssemwogerere n'abalala bangi nnyo mwabaddemu ate Namasole n'abalala ab'enjawulo ababaddeyo ku mukolo guno oba mu kusaba kuno. So munnange amawulire agava esayidi eyo nago bwe gato bwe gagenze munnange nga wenjogerera ssaawa zino abakwata mundu oba ate bitwaliisa abakuumaddembe oba n'abakuumi ab'enjawulo ennaku ezo babadde abamu bagenda mu maaso n'okubanga betta era nga bwe nnaagenda mu maaso n'okuwa amawulire ogenda kubeera owulira emboozi endala ate ey'omuserikale ey'eggye mu bulamu bw'ensi eno nga munnange kigambibwa mbu yabadde agenze kutta mukama we naye bwe yalemereddwa ate munnange yetta. Kakati ngenda kuba nga mbekuwa ate mu mawulire gaffe wennyini nnyini okugendera ddala mu maaso. Ndowooza ate lyegulire limbanzirako okubanga nkuwa abatuuze mu Makoko mu district ye Kasanda eno nno njogera ku Ssingo munnange olunaku olw'eggulo baguddemu enchukwe oluvannyuma lw'omuserikale wa police Alex Kitiyo era nga ono nno munnange abadde akolera ku police ye Makoko munnange yeesuddemu akambayaya n'akwata emmundu awo nno munnange ate munnange n'agenda munnange ajjawo mukama we naye ate ne bitatambula bulungi nnyo n'amaliriza nga ate yejje mu budde munnange bwe yakutte emmundu ate nga omuduumizi wa poliisi kwabadde akolera munnange ensonga ezamuggisizza mu bulamu bw'ensi eno abamu bazeekuusa ku kuba nti oba oliawo embeera mu abadde akolera tebadde nnungi era nga yimu ku nsonga oba oliawo yamuviiriddeko okubanga ate yejja mu bulamu bw'ensi eno kale ate abalala ne bagamba nti munnange ayinza okuba nga abadde tasasulwa so bino nno abimu ku ebyo abatuuze bagenze maaso n'okubanga bategeeza nti era munnange embeera ze zibadde zakyuka naye ng'ate munnange yo police yatandise dde okubanga enoonyereza ku nsonga ne yaviiriddeko omukulu ono Alex Kitiyo okubanga ate yejja mu bulamu bw'ensi eno nti era abamu bagenza ate ne bategeeza nti munnange abadde alina ensonga ebimu ku ebyo ebimusumbuwa mu mbeera y'obulwadde mbu kino era munnange kibadde kimuviiriddeko okwesibwanga amagengero olw'ebirowoozo ate munnange bingi naye ng'ate ebyo byonna byonna munnange byogerwako bwogerwa alipoota ku nsonga eno tennaba kubanga efulumizibwa butereevu naye nga munnange okunoonyereza kwo kukyagendera ddala mu maaso because okusinziira ku bantu ab'enjawulo abadde boogera ku nsonga eno bulimu yabadde ate munnange ayogera bibye so poliisi bw'enaabanga emaliriza okukola okunoonyereza kwayo tujja kufuna ate ekituufu ekyaviiriddeko omukulu ono okubanga munnange yejja mu bulamu bw'ensi eno ate eryo nno nalyo ggulire si ddungi n'akamu era nga nalyo likwata kubakwata mundu so ndowooza nga munnange Ssaabasumba Abasodox bwe yategeezezza munnange abakulu bano baali badde beddako ekigambibwa bugambibwa nti ono nno munnange oba oliawo ensonga ezamuviiriddeko okubanga yejja mu bulamu bw'ensi eno zabadde zeekuusa ku nsonga z'ebyensimbi oba ebyenfuna munnange ng'ono nno kirabika nti abadde tasasulwa bulungi naye byonna byambu bwe banaaba bamaze okukola okunoonyereza ate tujja kweyongera okumanya ekituufu ki ekyamuviiriddeko okubanga ate nno munnange yejja mu bulamu bw'ensi eno awo nno ngenda kubanga nvaawo ate nkutwale e Masaka omukulembeze w'eggwanga General Kaguta Museveni akyagenda mu maaso nno munnange n'okulambula ate ebitundu eby'e Masaka era ng'olunaku olw'eggulo lwe lwabadde olunaku olwokubiri nga munnange agenda mu maaso n'okulambula Masaka era nga mu kaweefube gwaliko yeew'okulaba nga enteekateeka za gavumenti ate munnange zituuka ku bantu ba bulijjo era ng'agezaako okulondoola okumanya wa we zituuse okwonoona ddala ensimbi ez'emiruka munnange zino nno ze yaleese okulwanyisa obwavu. President Museveni yakubiriza abantu b'e Masaka okwetaba mu nteekateeka za gavumenti ate munnange basobole okuba nga beekulaakulanya era ng'aweze munnange okufaafaagana n'abantu aboogerera enteekateeka zino munnange amafuukuule era mu kulambula kuno oba mu lugendo luno lwalimu olw'okulambula Masaka kakati era omukulembeze w'eggwanga olunaku olw'eggulo munnange yagenze ate ku bbanguliro ery'ebyemikono munnange ate era n'alitongoza era n'atendereza ate munnange obwakabaka bwa Buganda okubanga bukoledde wamu munnange mu kulwanyisa obwavu. Ebbanguliro nno lino munnange ery'ebyemikono olunaku olw'eggulo yaliguddewo mu butongole naye ng'ate munnange yasabye abakulu bano ate abalitwala okweyongera okukola omulimu guno okubangula abayizi mu mirimu gy'ebyemikono naye ng'ate ebyo byonna byonna bitadde ku bbali munnange ate n'okubanga baba training ate mu nsonga endala muno mulimu okukola engatto n'okubaako ate ebirala ate munnange bye bagenda maaso n'okubanga bakola. Awo nno munnange era we yasinzidde n'asaba ne bannayuganda okubanga ate bayaniriza enkola eya UPE oba USE era nga munnange nno yateekebwawo okubanga ate n'abaana b'abanaku ate nabo munnange bafuna ebyenjigiriza ebirungi. So yabasabye nti munnange nteekateeka eno eya UPE ate n'eya USE mu masomo bagayita amasomero ga gavumenti agalimu omukono gwa gavumenti oguyambako ku baana okusasulirako ku baana abamu munnange bannayuganda babeere nga ate bajettanira nnyo munnange nabo basobole okubanga baganyulwamu. So olwo nno lwe lugendo lw'omukulembeze w'eggwanga General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni akyagenda maaso n'okubanga alambula Masaka. Nteekateeka eno munnange egendereddwamu kuba nti alondoola ate services za government okulaba munnaye butya bwe zituuka ku bantu naye nga ate okusingira ddala enkola eno eya parish development model ate munnange basobole okubanga bamanya butya bwe basobola okugiganyulwamu. Awo nno ngenda kubanga nvaawo okugulira eryo ate neeyongereyokko nkyali kati nno mu kibiina ekya NRM. Waliwo abagamba nti munnange omukulembeze w'eggwanga ate olugendo luno lwalimu lwe lw'okubanga abunyisa enjiri eya NRM naye ate bannabyabufuzi munnange ku mitendera egy'enjawulo bo baakubye edda ttooki mu kulambula kw'omukulembeze w'eggwanga mu kitundu ekya Buganda n'ekigendererwa ekyokulaba engeri enteekateeka za gavumenti munnange gye zitambulamu mu bitundu bino era nga kw'ossa n'okubunyisa enjiri eya NRM ate mu Buganda nga munnange eno nno kigambibwa nti yatandikira ate mu bbendobendo ly'e Masaka. Ssentebe w'ekibiina ekya Forum for Democratic Change Ambassador Waswa Birigwa ye munnange yategeezezza nti kikyali kizibu nnyo ate President Museveni okukyusa abantu ba Buganda okuddamu munnange okumuwagira olw'ebisuubizo byazze munnange abawa ate ebitatuukiriziddwa okunnokosa okulemwa okulwanyisa obwavu obugoya abantu ba Buganda. Omukulembeze w'eggwanga munnange ate olugendo luno lwali mugabo nkutegeezezza olw'okulambula Masaka bino nno bye bimu ku ebyo oba oliawo byatunuulidde okubanga akola mu nsonga y'okulwanyisa obwavu nti era bye bimu ku byaleesa enteekateeka eno ate ey'emiriko okusobola okuyambako Abannayuganda ate mu bitundu by'eggwanga ebyenjawulo munnange okubanga bejja mu bwavu. So munnange bo bannabyabufuzi ku mitendera egy'enjawulo olugendo lwe luno baalukubyemu dda ebituli era nga bo balaba nti munnange kiyinza okubeera ekizibu oba ate kikyali kizibu nnyo okuba nti NRM eddamu okubanga ewamba wano mu Buganda naye nga ate akalwera ke twakamaliriza akankuba 2021 munnange kaalekanga ekibiina kya NRM wano mu Buganda tekifunyeewo buwagizi bungi era bw'otunuulira abakulembeze oba ababaka ba Parliament wano mu Buganda abasinga bava mu bibiina ebya opposition. Kakati wonna ateera wenviiridde kugulira eno neeyongerayo ewamyuka ssentebe w'ekibiina kya NRM wano mu ggwanga Haji Moses Kigongo munnange ye yasekeredde abalowooza nti NRM tekyalina buwagizi mu kibuga kino ekya Kampala n'ategeeza nti munnange bano nno munnange tebamanyi byabufuzi. Kakati Kigongo no yategeezezza nti wadde ebifo ebyobukulembeze ebisinga mu Kampala byawangulwa baludda luvuganya gavumenti munnange bo NRM yafuniramu ddala obululu obuwera era nga munnange yabategeezezza nti bajerinde mu kulonda ate okunabakuzeeko kwa 2026 ono nno yabyogedde bwe yabadde e Rubaga ng'asisinkanye bannakibiina ate mukabwefube munnange w'okulaba nti ekibiina munnange kinyweza obuwagizi bwakyo ate wano mu Buganda kibayambe okusobola okuwangula akalulu aka 2026. Ensonga za byabufuzi gye zinaggwera ffe tujja kubanga ate munnange tuzikutuusaako mu bulambulukufu bwazo. Ngenda kubanga ate awo nno munnange neeyongera yo kakati Mugongo anaatera okubanga awuuma buli nga nnaku z'omwezi 3 ate munnange abakkiriza okuba mu bitundu by'eggwanga eby'enjawulo bakuŋŋaanira ku kiggwa ky'abajulizi e Namugongo. Olwo nno njogera ku ky'Abakatuliki ate n'ekyabakristaayo munnange buli nga 3 June eno nno okulamaga gye kubeera kakati munnange lunaku olw'eggulo ebitongole by'ebyokwerinda baasiibye Namugongo ate munnange nga bongera okwetegekera ate okukuuma abalamazi munnange abanaaba bakuŋŋaanidde mu biggwa bino eby'abajulizi okujjukira olunaku lw'abajulizi wano mu ggwanga erya Uganda. Omwogezi wa poliisi mu Kampala n'emiriraano Patrick Onyango munnange yategeezezza nti essira balitadde ku kumanya ani agenda okudumira kibinja ki ate n'okwetegereza ekifo kyonna basalewo munnange butya bwe banaakuuma abalamazi abavudde mu bitundu by'eggwanga eby'enjawulo ng'eno nno waliyo abavudde ebuvanjuba bw'eggwanga munnange waliwo abakyali mu lugendo era nga munnange abamu ku bo olugendo lwabwe lwabikanga olwawanvuye wano gye buvuddeko twalabye abalamazi munnange abakonkomalidde ku mugga Katonga olw'okusanga ng'omugga munnange guno gwayabuluzaamu ekkubo nga kale n'ow'ebigere talinaako wasobola kubanga ayita era ne bategeeza nti munnange olugendo lwabwe luwanvu era ne basaba gavumenti at least ebeeko engeri gye bayambamu naye nga bano babadde babagambye bwe bakozese amazzi bayite ku mazzi ate munnange basobole okuba nga batuuka mangu e Namugongo naye ne bategeeza abamu ku bo nti munnange batya okuyita ku mazzi kale ne babeera nga basaba gavumenti ate munnange okuba nga babayambako basobole okuba nga ate batuuka bulungi nnyo ku kiggwa ky'abajulizi e Namugongo kale akeeterekerero munnange kali mu giya nene nnyo ng'abalamuzi okuva mu bitundu by'eggwanga eby'enjawulo bagenda maaso n'okuba nga batindigga eŋŋendo ate basobola okuba nga batuuka e Namugongo ku kiggwa ky'abajulizi ate okusobola okujjukira abajulizi munnange abattibwa ate emyaka egiwerera ddala munnange wano mu ggwanga erya Uganda. So awo nno ge mawulire ate agali esayidi eyo naye ng'awo nawo ngenda kubanga nvaawo ngenda genda ate ku nsonga y'ebyenjigiriza. Olunaku olw'eggulo ministry ey'ebyenjigiriza yasomedde Parliament ekiwandiiko munnange ekinyonnyola ku mawulire agabadde gatambula aga courses ate munnange oba amasomo agali eyo mu 10 n'okusoba munnange agasaziddwamu gavumenti ng'eyita mu kitongole ekitwala ebyenjigiriza ebyawaggulu ki National Council for Higher Education munnange wabula ababaka bo bagenze maaso n'okubanga beemulugunya ku ngeri ministry y'ebyenjigiriza munnange gye kuttemu ebyenjigiriza by'eggwanga nga bagamba nti ministry yonna esaana okukubibwamu tooki kubanga bingi nnyo ebitatambula bulungi. Dr. John Chrysostom Muyingo era ng'ono ye minisita omubeezi ow'amatendekero aga waggulu olunaku olw'eggulo bwe yabadde ate nga asoma ekiwandiiko kino nga kisomera ababaka ba Parliament yategeezezza nti degrees zino zonna munnange abo bonna abazifuna abayizi bonna ze baafuna munnange zikyali mu mateeka naye ng'ate waliwo amatendekero agamu agatannaba kubanga munnange bakola ekirina okubanga kikolebwa okuzza obujja ate munnange diguli zino munnange abaana basobole okubanga basoma nga bye basoma ate munnange babyeyagaliramu ate nabo basobole okubanga munnange baganyulwa mu ntuuyo zaabwe omuntu ateekamu emyaka mingi nnyo okusobola okuba nti atuula mu kibiina okufuna diguli eno ne bweba diploma oba certificate ate bwe biba nga bivuddeyo ne mumugamba nti munnange diguli gy'ayina yasazibwamu dda kakati yaba agenda kukola ate naye munnange Dr. John Chrysostom Muyingo yategeezezza nti digiri zino oba ate certificates zino oba ebiwandiiko bino munnange abayizi bye baafuna munnange bikyali valid oba ate bikyali bituufu nnyo basobola okugenda mu maaso n'okubanga babikozesa. Wonvuddewo dakiika 24 zakaita ku ssaawa 2 ez'amakya g'olunaku olwaleero. Mighty Drive gyogenda maaso n'okubanga olaba tuli mu kanyomero aka Mighty Global News Updates. Nze Omumbe Jaluweli Lilian n'okubanga ate nkutuusaako ebimu ku ebyo ebyakoze amawulire. Natera okubanga nga wunzika naye nga sinnagawunzika. Kakati tugendeko ewa Director Public Prosecution munnange ye munnange bino nno ebyavudde mu kakiiko akabadde kanoonyereza ku nsonga ez'amabaati akabadde kakulemberwa Honorable Jessica Babiku. Munnange yategeezezza nti bino munnange tebigenda kubanga bibagana nabo genda maaso n'okubanga bakola emirimu gyabwe egy'okunoonyereza, era nga recommendations oba ebimu ku ebyo byavudde ate mu alipoota eno yasomeddwa eri Parliament okuba nti munnange ababaka abamu oba ne baminisita munnange bakangavvulwa abo nno abenyigira mu mivuyo gy'amabaati g'e Karamoja, era n'ategeeza nti munnange okusinziira ku deputy spokesperson owa DPP omukyala Irene Nakimbugwe yategeezezza nti munnange nabo tebagenda kulemererwa kubanga bakangavulwa abo bonna abasangibwa oba ate n'abalala abanasangibwa nga munnange benyigira mu mivuyo gino egy'okutwala amabaati g'abawejjere b'e Karamoja, era nga nabo munnange bajja genda maaso n'okubanga beeyongera okunoonyereza abajulize oba suspects abalala rather bebanaaba bafunye munnange nabo bajja genda maaso n'okubanga babakangavulwa. Ebimu ku ebyo ebyabadde mu alipoota Honorable Jessica Babiku gye yasomedde abaka ba Parliament olunaku olw'eggulo nabadde mbikutegeezaako nga mu nno mulimu okubonereza minisita w'ensonga za Karamoja ate n'omuyambi bwe oba ne Junior Minister Honorable Agnes Nandutu munnange bano nno beetaaga okubanga bakangavulwa ate nga ye Speaker kugatta ne Vice President munnange bo beetaaga okubanga beetondera abantu b'e Karamoja nga kino nno balina okukikolera ate mu Parliament. Awo ngenda kubanga nvaawo neeyongereyo neggulira engenda okubanga mpunzika nalyo. Kakati okubala abantu wano nno mu ggwanga erya Uganda kugenda kubanga kutandika bunnambiro, naye nga gavumenti yategeezezza nti munnange beetaaga obuwumbi bweza kuno 132 ate munnange okusobola okubanga bagula tablets ze bagenda okubanga bakozesa mu kubala abantu. Emyaka egiyise bano nno ababadde nga bakola omulimu guno babadde nga bagenda bugenzi mu maka g'abantu ba mu bitundu by'eggwanga ebyenjawulo nga batambula n'ebitabo byabwe ne bawandiika, era nga kino munnange kibadde kimalira ddala akabanga akawererako ddala nga bayinza okukulungulula emyaka 2 mirambirira nga munnange bakyagenda maaso n'okubanga babala abantu. Naye ate olunaku olw'eggulo bano nno bategeezezza nti wagenda kubaawo enkyukakyuka mu kukola emirimu nga kakati tebagenda kubala abantu nga bakozesa bayiro oba kalaamu n'ebitabo, wabula bagenda kubanga bakozesa tekinologiya era nga beetaaga tablets okubanga bakola omulimu guno nga beetaagira ddala obuwumbi bweza kuno 132 okubanga bakola emirimu gino. So katulinde ebyo nabyo gye binaggwera ffe tujja kubanga tubikuwa nga bwe binaaba bitambudde. Tugenda kuba tuwumulamu katono nnyo ku ddakiika zino 27 ezakayita ku ssaawa 2 ez'amakya g'olunaku olwaleero. Mighty Drive egenda mu maaso. Bwe tukomawo ngenda kubanga neegattibwako munnange Rogers tuli ahabwe tutambuze programu eno, naye ng'ate seerabidde tugenda kuba twegattibwako Professor LUMUMBA. Sobeerako ate osobola okubanga owulira ensonga nga bwagenda okubanga azinnyonnyola anti olunaku olwaleero lwe tuyita olwa African Union Day ye munnange bajaguza emyaka 6 ate egy'okubanga bagenda maaso n'okubanga baweereza obanga bakola emirimu gyabwe. Tukomawo tugenda kuba tukuwa ebikwata ku mukago guno gwa African Union n'ebirala bingi nyo byotasaanidde kubeera nga osubwa, naye ng'ate munnange programu eno etambulira ddala okutuukira ddala ku ssaawa 4 ez'akalasamayanzi. Tuli butereevu ku The Alternative Uganda ne Digitalk TV Facebook pages, so nga ate ku YouTube tuli The Alternative Uganda. So nkusaba tugoberere subscribing ku YouTube channel yaffe, liking pages zaffe buli wonna w'otusanga ku Twitter, ku Instagram, tusobola okubanga tutambulira wamu. Tuwumulamu katono nnyo, tukomawo.
The alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digital brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk.
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
Hi, Rogers. Can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes, it can. Although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
Are you craving for that special meal that will entice your taste buds and leave you with lasting thrilling memories? Look no further. Spice Island Bulenga has got your answer. Natural, fresh and delicious juice, the best meals. Don't miss our daily specials from Monday to Sunday. Pizza Wednesday, Saturday Pizza Bonanza, you buy one and take two. Come dine with us and feel the experience. We are located at Prime Shopping Center in Bulenga, Mitiana Road. For inquiries, call us on 0704111720. Spice Island, we treat your cravings.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Nyongera okubuuzaako gwe munnanga akedde naffe olunaku olwaleero. Program The Mighty Drive gyogenda maaso n'okubanga olaba nze omumbejja Luwedde Lilian. Mu studio zino muno situddeemu bw'omu ndimu ne munnange Rogers studio habwe bwe tugenda okuba nga tutambuza programu eyo naye nga seerabidde nkutegeeza nti tuna Professor PL Lumumba agenda kuba nga ate ayongera okwogera ku nsonga z'omukago guno ogwa African Union. Naye nga tetunaba kugendayo yonna yonna, nkutegeeza nti tuli butereevu ku pages zaffe The Alternative Uganda ne Digitalk TV ku Facebook, so nga ate ku YouTube tuli The Alternative Uganda. Kusaba liking pages zaffe, ate subscribing ne ku YouTube channel yaffe tusobola okubanga tutambulira wamu. Nze Omumbejja Luwedde Lilian, naye nga sinaba kukwasa kazindalo mukulu Rogers tuli hawe tulamusaako. Njagadde ate ogende ne quote eno ate ogifumitirizeeko. Quote eno egamba, "It is clear that we must find an African solution to our problems and that this can only be found in African unity. Divided, we are weak. United Africa could become one of the greatest forces for good in the world." Quote eno egamba, "It is clear that we must find an African solution to our problems and that this can only be found in African unity. Divided, we are weak. United Africa could become one of the greatest forces for good in the world." Ebigambo nno bino byayogerwa eyali president w'eggwanga erya Ghana Kwame Nkrumah. Byefumitirizeeko ku lunaku luno ate lwe celebrating omukago guno ogwa African Union. Ate olabe oba munnange ate tutuuse ku ebyo omukago guno ebyaguteesaawo n'ebirala bingi nnyo munnange bye weetaaga okuba nga otegeera. Wano mu kkooti tugambye divided we are weak. United Africa could become one of the greatest forces for good in the world. Naye kyebuuzibwa tusobola okubeera united. Ekyo by the way tusobola okuba nga tukituukako bwe tuba nga ate munnange ffenna tulina okwagala okwo oba ffenna nga tulina goal emu. Rogers tuli habwe. Good morning.
Good morning, Lillian. And ladies and gentlemen who are watching us from wherever you are joining us from, this is the Africa Day, and I welcome you to this show. It is a great honor yet again to be here on that particular day, just to say a few things, of course, most of which I appreciate the people who came up with the idea of the African Union and all of this. I am actually glad that the quote you read was by Kwame Nkrumah, because he's one of the pioneers of the formation of the African Union. And him from, of course, Ghana, and then Sekotore from Guinea,
Okay.
The Julius Nyerere from Tanzania, the Kenneth Kaunda from Zambia, and they were the pioneers, the people who born the idea of wanting all the African countries to come together in the formation, and the formation of the initial was the Organization of the African Unity, the OAU, that was formed in 1963. And then the subsequent, what we know now as the African Union, just came in force in 2002. So the OAU began from 1963 to about 1999.
1999 ne batuula ne bakkaanya munnange ne wabaawo omukago ogwa African Union kakati gwe gwafomingibwa ffe leero abasinga gwe twogerako abasinga gwe tumanyi naye ate era agugenda okufomingibwa nze nali nzaaliddwa newankubadde nali sinnabitegeera nnyo ebigenda. No, bagenda ogikyusa. No, so sigamba ogwaso. Organization of the African Union, you just to have. Oh, Fachidensi. Choyagalo gandi mukulu nnyo.
Natoli wakati. Anyway, so yeah.
Did you have to say that on the show? Wow. Tujja kusisinkana oluvannyuma.
No, the whole idea for the formation of the African Union was to refocus the agenda of the whole United Africa. Now, the OAU was formed primarily to get rid of Africa of the decolonization, to
decolonization,
to bring about
apartheid, and all that
stuff. Yeah. So the main focus initially of the Organization of African Unity was for that, to make sure that all the African states get independence and are sovereign, are self-supporting, and all of that kind of stuff. Now, after attainment in the 1990s, of course, from 1960s to the 1990s, the fact that most of the countries had, if not all of them, had independence, they decided the focus now should be on the
not
cooperation.
All of them,
yes.
Because South Sudan had enough independence.
South Sudan seceded. It wasn't colonized. It wasn't a colonization issue. It was a secession issue. So Sudan as one, because it was Sudan, then it was independent. So the whole formation of the African Union now was to to now for growth, looking at growth and development of Africa as a whole. Of course, putting in perspective all those people who thought that Africa can be independent without depending on all the other external players, where you had the Gaddafis of this world who are making strides to make sure that Africa is independent, so much so that they even have their own monetary fund or common currency. It still actually is in the objectives of the African Union. So some of those things is how we changed from that. But the OAU, I wanted to read the objectives of the OAU so people know where we began from. So their main objectives are set out in the Organization of the African Union Charter.
Yeah.
And so one is to promote the unity and solidarity of African states. That was the first priority one. Another one was coordinate and intensify their cooperation and efforts to achieve a better life for the peoples of Africa. That was the second objective. The third was safeguard the sovereignty and territorial integrity of member states to make sure that people or countries are independent in their protection and sovereignty. The other was rid the continent of colonization and apartheid. That was to make sure that the countries are also, again, self-independent and all of that, self-reliant and that kind of stuff. Another one is promote international cooperation within the United Nations framework to build, of course, the network and working together with all of the other development partners and countries abroad. And then the last was harmonize members' political, diplomatic, economic, educational, cultural, health, welfare, scientific, technical, and defense policies.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was the foundation upon which the Organization of African Unity initially. Yeah.
But actually it's so that to promote unity and solidarity of the African states. Yes, neighbors. Because whatever formation ya organization eno ba whatever formation yo mukago guno ogwa African Union. Yadala nti bonna buli omu yali akoye ensonga z'okuba nti munange bafugibwa abafuzi b'amatwali bali bakoye ensonga y'okuba nti munange ebintu ebimu nga African presidents nabo tebalinaako se mu bintu ebimu mu mawanga gaabwe bali agadde nti kino kikolebwe naye nga tebasobola kukikola olw'ensonga nti waliwo akyaliwo abafuzi b'amatwali. Bwe batandikira mukago guno gwa African Union olabye ddala nga goals oba ebigendererwa. Yes, byali birungi nnyo. I really wonder byafiirawa because the 60 years kati ze tuli mu celebrating olunaku olwaleero there is a lot ebitannaba kutuukibwako. There is, of course, Rogers never know to know.
No, yeah. Okay.
There is something that has been done. And there is a lot that needs to be done.
That's right.
Because 60 years, banga deninyo. Banga at least tulabanga kino kyososo okusoma oba goal eno gyososo okubanga osoma to promote unity and solidarity of the African states. At least ekyo twali badde tukitambudde nga tukituuseeko naye bwetwogera tetunaba kukituukako and I believe you agree with me.
Promote unity and solidarity of African states. I want to agree and disagree with what you said.
Yes.
It is true that we have not entirely achieved that, but it's also a fact that we have done something about it. If you realize that Africa has blocks, there's a West African bloc, there's an East African bloc, there are South African countries, and most of them have what they call communities, like you see the East African community. Now, it is true that we have not realized exactly what the whole goal is, but there has been an establishment of structures to make sure that we are building towards the goal. So yeah, I want to agree that we have not exactly achieved that, but I also want to think that to a great extent, we have structures in place to make sure that that happens. Now, the thing with this whole, alongside the sovereignty of each state, this whole togetherness is also not easy to achieve because you realize that literally every country is hunting for itself. As much as we want a united Africa, each one is saying that I also want to get something for my people. This is what
I want to get something for my people.
Yeah. So it's not a one shoe fits all, that everything that is going to work in West Africa is going to work in East Africa. So it may take time to will take time to make sure that we achieve the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
But until then, at least we have a few things in place. Now you have a common one passport for East African communities. So it means that at least you can go to any of those countries without visas. There are countries like Seychelles, Benin, and I think is it Zambia or Gambia? One of those. They are visa free. open to all African countries. So it means that anyone coming from an African country can go there. Now that, of course, some countries will feel like they're still getting some few taxes here and there on the tariffs from different countries and all of that kind of stuff. But with those 3 out of the 55 members of the African Union, we can build slowly, progress by progress. If we have the blocs open their borders to each other, all the blocs at least to begin with, then eventually maybe we'll build into the whole Africa. So I think it's a process. I don't want to think we are not doing
it's a process because if we continue saying it's a process. Atenga buli omu asikaza we. Buli omu omunyama gwa kutaga guno gwe gwange nange nsakira bantu bange. Then that means twins of achieving a chakubantu we are united, that togetherness, like okolera awamu and all
the
that.
Integration.
Yes. So olunaku olwaleero tuluyita it's Ogambye African Day?
Yeah, it's Africa Day.
It's Africa Day, yeah. Not African Day. It's Africa Day.
It's Africa Day.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Africa Day. Tuji celebrating olunaku olwaleero 25th May bwe bwali bwe buti emyaka nkaaga egiyise, right?
Yeah, 1963.
1963. Nonno teyatandika nga African Union mu bujjuvu. Yatandika nga organization
of African Unity.
Yes. So kakati ogenda kuba nga totusomera Rogers, ogenda kuba nga otusomera munange ebimu ku ebyo objectives ezimu ku ezo munange ez'omukago guno gwa African Union.
Before we got to the African Union, I wanted on the Organization of African Unity, the very first one. That meeting of the 1963.
Mwali 32.
Those 32 heads of state. I actually wanted to read the people who were in attendance back then.
Okay, you can.
And just a snippet of some of the speeches that were given that day, just to give a projection into what this whole idea was. So the people who were in attendance were one, of course, we'll start with His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I. You know that he was the king of Egypt at that point, of Ethiopia rather. He was the emperor of Ethiopia. There was His Excellency Ahmed Ben Bella. He was the Prime Minister of Algeria. There was His Majesty Mwami Mwambutsa IV, the King of Burundi. There was His Excellency Amadou Adijo, President of the Federal Republic of Cameroon. There was His Excellency David Dacko, who was the President of the Central African Republic.
Okay.
There was His Excellency Franco Tombalbaye,
oh my God,
President of the Republic of Chad. There was His Excellency Fulbert Yolu, President of Congo Brazzaville. There was His Excellency Joseph Kasavubu, President of the Republic of Congo Leopoldville. There was His Excellency Hubert Maga, the President of the Republic of Dahomey. There was His Excellency Leon Mba, MBA, the President of the Republic of Gabon at the time. There was His Excellency Kwame Nkrumah, of course, the legend President of the Republic of Ghana. There was His Excellency Sekou Touré. Now, those are some of the people who pioneered this whole thing. President of the Republic of Guinea. There was His Excellency Hufot Boni, the President of the Republic of Ivory Coast at the time. His Excellency William V.S. Tubman, the President of Liberia at the time. Then His Royal Highness Hassan Riba, Crown Prince representing His Majesty King Idris I, and head of the Libyan delegation at the time. Your President Muammar Gaddafi had not become at the time. There was His Excellency Philbert Siranana.
Who is saying he was my president?
He wasn't, because most people know Libya from Gaddafi, not the previous people. Yeah, so that one, Philbert was the president of the Malagasy Republic. There was His Excellency Modibo Keita, President of Mali. There was His Excellency Mokhtar Ould-Daddah, President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania.
Oh.
There was His Excellency Hamani Diori, President of the Republic of Niger. His Excellency Alhaji Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, Prime Minister of the Federation of Nigeria. There was His Excellency Habemushi, Minister for Foreign Affairs of Rwanda. The best comes last. The Minister for Foreign Affairs of Rwanda, representing His Excellency Georgia Kayibanda, the President of Rwanda at the time.
Okay.
There was His Excellency Leopold Sedar Senghor, President of the Republic of Senegal.
Okay.
There was His Excellency Milton Magai. Milton Magai was the Prime Minister of Sierra Leone. There was His Excellency Aden Abdullah Osman, President of the Somali Republic.
Wow.
There was His Excellency Tehafi Tezaz Akilo Habute World, Prime Minister of Ethiopia. There was His Excellency El Fariki Ibrahim Abod, yes, President of the Supreme Council and Prime Minister of the Republic of the Sudan. You were talking about Sudan. South Sudan wasn't formed at the time. There was His Excellency the Regent Julius Nyerere, President of the Republic of Tanzania, Tanganyika at the time.
Yeah.
There was His Excellency Habib Bourguiba, President of the Republic of Tunisia. There was His Excellency Milton Obote.
Okay.
Yours truly.
I wonder you got enough between that to contributing.
Yes, he was His Excellency, but he was Prime Minister at the time. We didn't have presidents at the time. He was Prime Minister of the Republic of Uganda. There was His Excellency Gamal Abdel Nasser, President of the United Arab Republic of Egypt. There was His Excellency Maurice Yamego, President of the Republic of Upper Volta. And then Mr. Ajuma Odinga, representing the African National Liberation Movement in non-independent territories, those who are not yet independent at the time, 1963. And you know, the well-wishers, those of who are peeping. So those are the people who are attending and who formed the Organization of African Unity.
They did a very wonderful job.
Yeah, moving the idea from the other four, the Kwame Nkrumah, the Sekotore, this man of Zambia was who? Kenneth Kaunda. Yes, and Nyerere, of course, of Tanzania. The idea from those four now to being adopted by all these 32 meeting at that time to make sure that that comes in place. So yeah, those are the people who brought about this whole idea of Pan-Africanism and wanting Africa to be independent, to be self-reliant, to be able to control itself, to be sovereign, a sovereign area, and all of that stuff. So I did also find some of the speeches that were given, actually all the speeches that were given, but I cannot read all of that because there are too many.
What was that outstanding speech?
The outstanding, of course, was Haile Selassie, because one, he was the host, it was in Ethiopia, but also he was, I think, the biggest at the time in Africa. And so I wanted to just find a few highlights in his speech. It's too big, it's about 6 to 7 pages, so I cannot go into that. But I'm going to where it begins. He said, "We have come together to assert our role in the direction of world affairs and to discharge our duty to the great continent whose 250 million people we lead." Said, Africa is today at mid-course in transition from the Africa of yesterday to the Africa of tomorrow. Even as we stand here, we move from the past into the future. The task on which we have embarked, the making of Africa, will not wait. We must act to shape and mold the future and leave our imprint on events as they slip past into history. We seek at this meeting to determine whither we are going and to chart the course of our destiny. It is no less important that we know whence we came, as awareness of our past is essential to the establishment of our personality and our identity as Africa. He said, this world was not created piecemeal. Africa was born no later and no earlier than any other geographical area on this globe. Africans, no more and no less than other men, possess all human attributes, talents and deficiencies, virtues and faults. Thousands of years ago, civilizations flourished in Africa, which suffers not at all by comparison with those other continents. In those centuries, Africans were politically free and economically independent. Their social patterns were their own, and their cultures truly indigenous. The obscurity which enshrouds the centuries, I don't want to go through all of this stuff, but that is just a bit to give you that the recognition of what is happening is not because at the time, because some were just becoming independent and others were not independent at the time, was not to say that we had any problems that were only exclusive to Africa. The civilization as it grew had challenges in different areas, and different countries faced a lot of that. Even the great countries right now, the Americas that are superpowers, took over 100 years. The UK, United Kingdom at the time, had wars for over 100 years, you know, trying to establish what it now became to be. So he also was recognizing that these problems are not just ours, but self-independence, sovereignty of the Africa as it is, is something that needs deliberate and intentional efforts concerted at that to make sure that what they wanted had to come. So yeah, that is just a bit about him. He says, today we look to the future calmly, confidently and courageously. We look to the vision of an Africa not merely free, but united. He says, in facing this new challenge, we can take comfort and encouragement from the lessons of the past. He says, we know that there are differences among us. Africans enjoy different cultures, distinctive values, and special attributes. But we also know that unity can be and has been attained among men of the most disparate origins, that differences of race, of religion, of culture, of tradition are no insuperable obstacle to the coming together of peoples. He said, history teaches us that unity is strength and cautions us to submerge and overcome our differences in the quest for common goals, to strive with all our combined strength for path to true African brotherhood and unity. That is just a bit about the man Haile Selassie that he was at the time. I wanted to also look at some, of course, Kwame Nkrumah, and just a bit about what he also said in light of all of this that was ongoing.
Okay.
So yeah, in the meantime, we have the vision that it is now. You can see that it came from the people who are really serious about what they wanted to do at the time. I don't know what you pick from all of that as well.
No, bw'otunuulira bw'owuliriza obulungi ebigambo ebyo nga bw'obisomye byonna byonna bikulagirira nti abasajja bano ekintu kino baali bakitunuulidde okumala ebbanga. Okwagala okuba n'omukago guno ogwegattirwamu amawanga ku ssemazinga wa Africa, munnange bakirabirira nga kino kyetaagisa okuba nga nabo basobola okwetongola, okubanga bingi nnyo ebikyuka, nti newankubadde munnange twali colonized oba twali tufugibwa abafuzi ab'amatwale, naffe twetaaga ngaffe ne twetongola ne tubako kye tukola ngaffe, oba ne tuwaako engeri gye twekulaakulanyamu ffe ngaffe nga amawanga agava ku lukalu luno olwa Africa.
That's right. Now I want to just give you a snippet of what Nkrumah said. I keep highlighting Nkrumah because he's one of those legends of the Africa. I think one of the greatest Pan-Africans we have.
Okay.
I think even Pan-Africanism began with those people. So there are those fathers of Africa, forefathers at that, we want to call it. So he said, a whole continent has imposed a mandate upon us to lay the foundation of our union at this conference. He said it is our responsibility to execute this mandate by creating here and now the formula upon which the requisite superstructure may be created. He said, on this continent, it has not taken us long to discover that the struggle against colonialism does not end with the attainment of national independence. Independence is only the prelude to a new and more involved struggle for the right to conduct our own economic and social affairs, to construct our society according to our aspirations, unhampered by crushing and humiliating neo-colonialist controls and interference.
Okay.
That is what he said. He said, from the start, we have been threatened with frustrations where rapid change is imperative, and with instability where sustained effort and ordered rule are indispensable. No sporadic act nor pious resolution can resolve our present problems. Nothing will be of avail except the united act of a united Africa. He said, we have already reached the stage where we must unite or sink into that condition which had made Latin America the unwilling and distressed prey of imperialism after 1.5 centuries of political independence. As a continent, we have emerged into independence in a different age, with imperialism grown stronger, more restless and experienced, and more dangerous in its international association. Our economic advancement demands the end of colonialist and neo-colonialist domination in Africa.
Wow. Kati ensonga enkulu gye nsinza okulondamu ko ebyo byonna byonnyonnyodde nga bw'obisomye kwe kuba nti okufuna independence tekitegeeza nti
you're independent.
Exactly. Ekirala independence tekoma ku kuba nti nga bikankeerabidde naye tekoma ku kuba nti already ofunye that independence. Waliwo ebiddako mu maaso awo biwetaaga okuba nga nkola ng'okola oba ate n'okutuukiriza.
And the transition from being ruled to self-rule is also something that has to take some deep focus.
Bwebigwa mu mikono gy'abantu nga tebaali ready.
It's too fresh.
Ebintu byonna bigotaana akadde katambulira ddala.
Akadde kagenze. I wanted to
naye twetaaga okuyita mu aims
as a highlight.
Okay.
Of course our own. We can't just go. We just want to highlight his contribution. But he said just a small bit of what he said. He says, what appears to me important in this agreement is the quantum and the total effectiveness of the joint effort we are prepared to put to the task. I am in favor of wielding a heavy hammer to give a definite and meaningful shape to the things that we intend to do, thus ensuring that our own people and the world at large are left in no doubt whatever as to our intentions. It is, of course, very encouraging that the mere presence of all of us in this city and in this great country is in itself an indignation of the beginning of a further step in the continental reawakening of and desire to unity, unite Africa, I think I should put it.
Bonna ensonga gye basinga okukolako oba okukoonako munnange ey'obwegezi.
Yeah. So that is just a bit. All of these people who are, the 33 of them, had their speeches, and very strong ones at that.
Yeah.
But I cannot read all of them, of course, because it's just too long. Maybe in future we shall do something about that. Oh. But yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Ngenda kuba nsomamuko ezimu ku ezo aims eza omukago guno ogw'amawanga ga Africa. Twebuuze ebimu ku byo bituukiddwako, yabaffe ki ekyeremesezo okuba nga tubituuka kuba ebigendererwa. Ekisooka kigamba achieve greater unity and solidarity between African countries and their people.
I would
50-50.
I'd give us about 40-60.
Okay. 40
in favor.
Defend the sovereignty, territorial integrity and independence of its member states.
That's again to some extent, because now we have East Africa, we have an army.
Yeah.
Most of the times when there's an insurgency in countries, terrorism and stuff, most of the neighboring countries do send armies in those areas. So I think we are doing something about
Accelerate the political and socio-economic integration of the continent.
No, that we have not achieved.
Okay.
Because borders are not free. We have the Africa Continental Free Trade Area that is trying to make sure that goods and services can cross borders at no cost and all of that. The economic integration. It has not happened, but they're working something about it.
Okay. Promote and defend African common positions on issues of interest to the continent and its peoples.
I do not think they have gone anywhere and represented Africa as a whole. Most of them have gone with their personal intentions and all of that. Well, they have been they have been sat in one room. Really, you don't expect anything to happen out of
that. Encourage international cooperation. Yeah, at least.
There.
To 50.
50. Okay.
Promote peace, security, and stability on the continent.
I think
40.
Nah, you would give them 30. You are being just 10% generous. Because since that time, the 1960 to today, okay, that is African Union, that is 2002 to now, which is about what? About almost 20 years?
Yeah.
21 years, the African Union. But even then, we have had a lot of coups, we have had a lot of terrorism attacks. All of these things have not reduced. And most of the things...
No kuranaga actually mu mawanga internally techinaba kubanga chivao.
So I don't think we have really achieved. In fact, that is too much, 20.
Promote democratic principles and institutions, popular participation and good governance.
No. I think the only country that has a bit of democracy too, Ghana and Kenya, some bit of reasonable good governance. Tanzania, you just don't hear too much about Tanzania, but I don't think it's really, they just don't put their dirty linen in public. We are not doing that well, at least.
Unlike here in Uganda, because we put everything kumawulire. Buli kimu jachisanga ku internet. Nebo bononya chi nebo chiba chaita ke bank.
So I don't think we are doing really well in that.
Okay, promote and protect human and people's rights in accordance with the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and other relevant human rights instruments.
Human rights, not so much. Maybe human dignity, just a bit. We recognize the dignity of human life. At least we have not had some sort of like a mass cleansing or something. Well, it has happened in some countries.
Okay.
But I think they have tried to condemn. So I think we are there. As for human rights, we are absolutely not doing any better. No.
Establish the necessary conditions which enable the continent to play its rightful role in the global economy and in international negotiations.
We are like at 5% on that. Because what is the African economy in the global space, in the global market? What is it? We are the richest continent. We are the richest continent, but the poorest continent, just as well. We are both. We are the richest and the poorest continent.
Actually, tetumanyi bya bugagga bye tulina butabusobola na kubifunamu.
Actually, as you will hear later from LUMUMBA, he did mention something about sustained childhood. We want to always identify as developing countries. But
tetwagala kuva mu pampers, tetuva mu diapers.
We have been developing for I don't know how long now.
We are developing
countries. Never becomes developed.
Njogera Uganda bukyanga tufuna independence daffe tususe mu myaka enkaaga.
It is.
But
60.
of course tulinga abaana bakazaalibwa.
We are developing countries.
Yeah.
We are developing
countries.
So, no, I don't think we are doing anything in the global economy.
Promote sustainable development at the economic, social and cultural levels, as well as the integration of African economies.
Except for culture and the social status of the African countries. A lot of countries have tried to preserve the African culture. Even when you see the current, homosexuality and stuff like that, most people across Africa have said that is not in our culture. That is not a thing we do. And a lot of other things we have tried to refuse. So I think as far as culture is concerned, we have tried to preserve it. Yeah.
Okay, ngenda kweyongerayo endala egamba promote cooperation in all fields of human activity to raise the living standards of African peoples.
We are there.
Tugezaako. Coordinate and harmonize the policies between the existing and future regional economic communities for the gradual attainment of the objectives of the Union.
Well, okay, we do have communities, those regional blocks, and they are also trying to make some strides towards making sure that there is some bit of integration, at least from that level. So I hope that will contribute to the bigger picture of the African integration.
Okay. Advance the development of the continent by promoting research in all fields, in particular science and technology.
Well, startups are beginning, I think, in this century and technology, but we are not, they wouldn't even give us 20%. I think we are like at 10 or 15. At technology, we are still...
we are still lagging. Work with relevant international partners in the eradication of preventable diseases and the promotion of good health on the continent.
Okay, except for the fact that no man is an island.
Yes.
I do not see why, as a whole, Africa needs the other development partners. As a whole Africa, as a continent. Okay, we are not an island. We do need them.
Already Rogers, bali bali abafuzi baffe. Okay, be batufuganga mu biseera biri.
So tubagoberere baberenga.
Simanyi oba bagenda otutanga twetengeredde. Nga tuyinza okutambula.
But I don't think it was even necessary to have that in the objectives. Because at least they would have said, maybe work together to eradicate those preventable diseases and all that kind of stuff. But putting that work with the others, literally trying to say that we cannot do this on ourselves, we need some reliance on other people. I think we should even change that.
Ensure the effective participation of women in decision making, particularly in the political, economic and social culture areas. Okay,
I think they are trying. Nowadays, the gender-based violence, the feminism, all of these things are sprouting.
Even on the Vision 2063,
it's also there, yes. So I think
develop and promote common policies on trade, defense, and foreign relations to ensure the defense of the continent and the strengthening of its negotiating positions.
I don't think we are anywhere there. You have like 5% at most, if not 2. Because honestly speaking, we are not defending Africa in the first place. I have not seen any time that, okay, there has been isolated cases, but where there has been when Libya was being invaded by the US and put to crushed to nothing that it is today.
The African Union to do something or to intervene, but
where was African Union? What did they do in this century? So I think we should be ashamed
of ourselves
about that.
Ngenda kubanga nsomesa embayo egamba invite and encourage the full participation of the African diaspora as an important part of our continent in the building of the African Union.
Yeah, I think they're also trying to do that. I am disappointed at AU on one thing. Okay, I know there are structures, but also a part of the objective should have been the inclusion of youth. Africa is one of the youngest continents. In age, I mean. I
think by then, it
is 2002.
Yes.
Okay. Even then, I think we should also add that. Because the growth also of this continent is not just about the people who are in charge right now. It's what the future holds. The projections are not for today. They are for the future. So I think that in moving forward, there should also be something about youth as a particular focus on the growth and development of the continent as well.
Okay, wotunulira implementation ya yemirimu African Union decision making waliwo waliwo obukiiko obwenjawulo ya bodies ezenjawulo ezateekebwawo okuba nti ne handlinga kino ne handlinga kiri ne handlinga kiri. Naye ng'ate bwe siginyiza obutazisoma zonna tulina the Assembly of Heads of State and Government, the Executive Council, the Permanent Representatives Committee, tulina Specialized Technical Committees, the Peace and Security Council and the African Union Commission. N'ebirala bingi nnyo bodies nnyingi nnyo ezaateekebwawo okuba ng'ate munnange bakwasaganya mirimu gino gya African Union. Naye tulina Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. Agenda 2063 is Africa's blueprint and master plan for transforming Africa into the global powerhouse of the future. It is the continent's strategic framework that aims to deliver on its goal for inclusive and sustainable development and is a concrete manifestation of the Pan-African drive for unity, self-determination, freedom, progress and collective prosperity pursued under Pan-Africanism and African
Renaissance.
Yeah, that one. Ekigambo kibadde kigaaniddeyo naye Agenda 2063 mulimu ebintu bingi nnyo nze yasinze okunkwatako yeya silencing guns neya borderless Africa. Silencing guns, is that even feasible?
It is okay. Well, the one
because
thing about
kiyinza okuba nga tekiri nti lino eggwanga neriri eggwanga balwana naye ng'ate internally.
Actually, silencing the guns was an initiative that was spearheaded by youth, the African Union Youth Envoy, and you know, the trying to use youth as like the conciliators in this whole process.
Okay.
To just try to promote some togetherness, to promote peace, and all of that kind of stuff. I remember we had actually created the East African branch. I don't know if it's happened, if they left me somewhere, but in the beginning I remember being a part of that, the youth regional bloc for the East Africa.
Oh.
But yeah, the whole idea for silencing the guns, the whole idea for silencing the guns was to make sure that there's a bit of arbitration and conciliation when those things happen. When you see countries like, is it Ethiopia that has been fighting with Tigray and all of that, that the instability, internal instability has led to the death of a lot of those people. You know what was here in Sudan and South Sudan. So the silencing the guns was to make sure that if there's some sort of disagreement between whether it is within in the countries or it is without, with external countries going against each other, there is a mechanism to make sure that those issues can be resolved without necessarily using the guns or going to war. So that was the thing. I don't know how far we are with that, but I think it is a good initiative that we should also pay attention to. The other was that, we talked about it earlier, the African Continental Free Trade Area, to make sure that there is a common market, to make sure that there is a free movement of goods and all of that. Now that is the reason for that Africa Continental Free Trade Area is why they also started the campaign of Borderless Africa,
Okay.
which is coordinated by the Africans Rising, and some friend of mine is called Hadi Yakubu. He's the coordinator of the Africans Rising, and the ones who are spearheading the Borderless Africa campaign.
Okay.
So for them, they are saying that goods cannot be free to cross borders without their people. So we should also try to, as we promote the borderless campaign for goods and markets and the common markets, we should also promote the free transport and transport of people, that you have to cross borders necessarily without visas. You know that even some airspaces are not free. You might live here, you're going to, for example, let's say Tunisia, that you have to probably first go to France or first go to the Middle East and then come back to Africa. You know how funny that sounds? So, yeah,
continent, continent,
because there are airspaces that are not open. So I think Borderless Africa is a good thing, or at least the airspaces to begin with, that I don't have to first go to Paris to first to come
back to Africa,
to Libya,
to Libya
somewhere. Yeah. So I think it's a good campaign, and I hope I commend that comrade Hadi Yakubu and his whole team on the campaign that they are trying to do to make sure that we have a borderless Africa.
Silencing guns, ending all wars, civil conflicts, gender-based violence, violent conflicts, and preventing genocide in the continent by 2020. Okay, 2028. COVID yajja.
Yeah.
So tulina kataja agenda 2063 katulinde ekyo nakyo kituukewo.
Yeah.
Nenga agenda 2063 inamu bingi nnyo, mulimu cyber security, African financial institutions, the Pan-African e-network, Africa outer space strategy, Africa virtual and e-university, mulimu African continental free trade area, tujogeddeko African commodity strategy, integrated high-speed train network, nebirala bingi nnyo ebiri mu agenda eno 2063.
Yeah, it's a good program. Yeah. And of course, I did mention earlier, there's also, they are trying to, the African Union wants to establish the Africa Monetary Fund. Like you see the IMF.
Yeah.
So we have the AMF to make sure that it funds Africa. They have a goal to do that. So I hope it also comes around to materialize.
I won't know. Omukago guno gw'amawanga ga Africa gujja kuba gujja guza emyaka 10.
Yeah, and to establish an African bank, like you see the World Bank, but we have an African
bank. Tunaaba tuli balamu fera tujja kutuli bajjukiza nti ensonga zino twazoogerako.
Maybe it probably will take time, but eventually I hope that it comes to pass.
Weewaawo. Noza tugenda kuba tuwummulira wano ate tugende ddala ewa Professor Lumumba atwongereyo n'omukulu Nomanto Muhimbise batwongereyo tugira ddala ku ssaawa 4. Ensonga ze bagenda okwogerako ze zimu ku ezo ze twogeddeko, naye ate bo bagenda kuba bazirambulula n'endala ate ez'enjawulo ze bagenda okuba nga boogerako. So katugende ddala ate munnange twekkaanye ebifo eyo tuwulirize omukulu by'anaaba atugambe, because bebamu ku Pan-Africanists betulinawo. Tikyasigazaawo tubakwatanga kalira ka mwana bye boogerako. Kalira ka mwana. So katugende tusooke tuwulire ate ebyo bagenda okuba nga batugamba Mighty Drive ekyagenda mu maaso.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can. Although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak. either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be normal.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Our viewers, good morning. My name is Norman Tumhembise. I'm very humbled to also today to meet and have some kind of a conversation with Professor Pielo Lumumba. To me, he's one of Africa's greatest, and he will forever be. And fortunately, also shares a name with the very person, Patricia Lumumba, whom I also take as my other icon. Prof, first of all, good morning and hello to our viewers.
Good morning, Norman.
Good morning.
Glad to see you
Nice
again.
to see you too.
Thank you.
Yeah, once again you're in Uganda, and
Thank
it has
you.
become your other home.
Yes, indeed.
It's representing the country and the breeze itself.
Thank you.
We are aware that you are here to celebrate, I think, 60th, commemorate the 60th anniversary of African Union now, rather, which started as Organization of African Unity. But in any case, before we even begin to discuss the purpose for which you are here and so many other delegates, was it even necessary to transit from Organization of African Unity and then African Union?
No, there are those who would say that a rose by any other name is a rose. But there was indeed a substantive reason for having the transition to the from the OAU to the AU. But allow me to give you a little background. When 32 African heads of states and government sat in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, from the 23rd to the 25th days of May, the year 1963, hosted by the then Emperor Haile Selassie, it was the culmination of a process that had been going on, because within the continent of Africa there had been two groups. The group that took the view that post-independent African countries should unite immediately to form the United States of Africa. That group was led by the Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah and was known as the Casablanca Group. There was another group which took the view that the continent should grow incrementally from regional bodies and ultimately a political union. It did not have a clear leader, but William Tubman, who was then the president of Liberia, did emerge as one of the key leaders, as indeed did Felix Houphouët-Boigny of Cote d'Ivoire. They were called the Monrovia Group. So when they met in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, there were individuals who subscribed to the gradualist approach of the Monrovia Group and what I call the immediacy approach of Kwame Nkrumah. The Organization of African Unity in many ways marked a compromise by the Casablanca Group, and it was seen as a victory for the Monrovia Group. So it became a loose union. And for a long time, its only focus, or its major focus, was helping the countries that had not been independent to regain their independence, complete with the establishment of the wing that would deal with the struggle for independence in Dar es Salaam, in what was then Tanganyika, later to become Tanzania, under the guidance of Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere. So later, when the continent recognized that Kwame Nkrumah had been right And it's important that on the 6th day of March 1997, on the occasion of the celebration of the 40th anniversary of Ghana's independence, Kambarage Nyerere himself, who had been a gradualist, apologized to the Osagie for Kwame Nkrumah. And he said, had we known, we would have followed what Kwame said, what Kwame said, because it has now become a lot more difficult to unite because people have become used to their sovereignty, and the neo-colonial project is alive and well. So the movement started towards transitioning the Organization of African Unity, which was then being described merely as a toothless bulldog. And some of us said that it was not even a bulldog in the first place. It didn't even have teeth. So the transition was then being championed by people like Muammar al-Gaddafi of Libya, Thabo Mbeki of South Africa, and Bouteflika of Algeria, and younger people such as Thomas Isidore, Noel Sankara were not quite with it, but thought in that particular direction. So the transition was meant to create a union that was stronger, a union that was more involved, a union which had its ultimate agenda as that of unity in the manner that was conceived by the Osagie for Kwame Nkrumah and others. And therefore, the transition was not artificial. It was actually meant to be a seismic, earthquake-ish kind of movement into a new dispensation.
If I may ask, some people out there also have another thought that rather they set a lot of goals that they couldn't achieve. You know, there's when you, like in Africa here, they'll tell you, bite what you can swallow.
Yeah.
So sometimes someone sets a very, very huge agenda, which is hard to perhaps achieve. Maybe it was a very huge dream for all of us, and perhaps that's why it hasn't worked, for lack of another word, like you have said, that perhaps some of you described it not even being a bulldog with even teeth. Maybe it was a little dog, a little toothless dog. It couldn't not even bark, rather just being there, save for having a name. Don't you think they could, I mean, they set a very big agenda that was hard to achieve. They were working, hurriedly to achieve hard things.
No.
First of all, they had countries that didn't have independence.
Yes.
They had countries that were still at war. They had countries that believed too much in the West.
Yeah.
Don't you think that could have been the problem?
No, not at all. My own view is, and I think it is Kenya's Wangari Muta who once said it, if your dream does not scare you, your dream does not keep you awake, then don't dream at all. Your dreams must be big and must scare you, and it must keep you awake. Let us not judge ourselves within short lifetimes. When you are thinking of Africa, think 1,000 years from today. When you think 1,000 years, then the dreams are too small. So that what we ought to do, as the saying goes, we go set out to eat an elephant. When you want to eat an elephant, you can't swallow the elephant. Yeah. You eat it piece by piece, piece by piece. And that is what the continent of Africa is doing through initiatives such as Africa Agenda 2063. And in my view, that is even too soon.
But you see, Prof, this is the problem we have in Africa, for example. You will have, and I will apply our country. We will have Vision 2040. But even when you are planning for Vision 2040, you still behave as if you are in 1900.
Yes.
By conduct, by policies, by your failure to execute some things. Take for instance, I was telling colleagues before we came here, it is so sad that you'll reach Kenyatta International Airport and Kenyans have to stamp in your passport when you're Ugandan.
Absolutely.
It's just worrying, and then you wonder if you can hardly have such unity within these blocks. What about this whole big thing? Even when you say that dreaming big is good, but also, I mean, being over-ambitious with something that you may also fail to achieve, may also become, it may discourage you also to ever dream again.
No, Norman, I can't disagree with you. Many times we say with our mouth what we do not believe in our hearts, and I think that can be disheartening. But I want you to be a little bit more optimistic in the knowledge that in the life of any country, there will be periods when you have individuals who are so selfish, so myopic, that they are incapable of seeing the big picture, and therefore they mislead people. And I've said this times without number that part of the problem of Africa is that we have too many misleaders masquerading as leaders. You can see that personally, I use the term leadership very rarely when I'm making reference to African politicians, because in my view, there are only a very few of them who are leaders. So look at the kind of declaration that we have made for ourselves since we regained independence, and even in the last few years. We said about movement of people. In the East African region, why do I have to have a passport? Basic free movement of people, free movement of labor. But the truth is, we must not abandon those good things simply because we have been frustrated at this level or that level. If we think about this war as an intergenerational war, even if we make 3 steps forward and 2 steps backward, we'll have made a single step. And those of us who believe in the African project, those of us who believe that it's an intergenerational battle, our duty is to stand metaphorically on the hilltops and shout to the latter-day pharaohs and heralds and tell them that we will continue to shout until the day that the right thing is done. We must get into our political discourse and introduce hygiene into politics, which is not hygienic for the moment. It will be frustrating, it will be annoying, and that is what these crooks want to do. They want to annoy you, they want to frustrate you, they want you to lose hope. Once they have done that, then they sit back and say, we told you.
But
we told you.
I have this also to ask from you. You people that have that vision, and I'm sure as day follows night, you were alive then, though young, and so many other people of your caliber. But then it goes back to whether or not you have done your best to educate us, our generation, to understand these basics. The reason for which, for example, then OAU was founded, in comparison with what maybe European Union has achieved and others. Because for some reason, it's like young people do not even understand, like, is there even need for unity? Like, do you think our leaders in Africa, for example, have done their best? Because if I may also ask, I wouldn't want to quote you or quote others that invited you here. You would wonder how many young people are invited in this conference itself. Yeah. At the end of it all, we shall see all of you gray hair, professors. What about you, university students? How many young people have been invited in such conferences to also share? Because the United Africa literally is for us and also the youngest generations. So, have you done your best?
Norman, let me tell you, I was in Arusha, Tanzania on 22nd of May under the festival Festac to celebrate African culture and art. What made me happy is that we had people drawn from as far as Costa Rica, Guyana, different parts of the world, and they were school children, age 12, deliberately invited so that we begin to grow a young army of young men and women. Right now, only yesterday, the 23rd of the day of May, I wrote to the chair of the Committee of Experts for East African Confederation, the retired Justice Odoki. And I told him, I am aware that you are in Kenya collecting the views of Kenyans on the Constitution on Confederation of East Africa. Why is it that your committee is composed almost exclusively of retirees? Where are the young professionals who can bring new knowledge? Of course, he has not replied. I hope he does. So you are making a valid point that we must not continue preaching to the choir. We must, in the nature of things, in the nature of things, begin to bring in younger people so that they are inducted into this agenda, because their induction is what is going to create an army of young men and women who understand that this battle is intergenerational. But should we judge ourselves harshly? The Europe that we keep on talking about, there was a time when in Europe, in England, there was there were wars for 100 years, the War of the Roses. The post-colonial Africa is only slightly above 60 years. In the case of countries such as Zimbabwe and South Sudan, they have not even attained the age of 30. So let us not judge ourselves harshly. I think if you were to look at what has been achieved in the last 60 years, there are good things that have been achieved. We could have done better. When you see us criticizing or critiquing African governments, it is not for lack of appreciation of the positives that have been done, but it is because we think we could have done better. That we are fighting as lightweights when we should be fighting as heavyweights. This is our quarrel. It's not because you are fighting, you may be fighting very well in your lightweight division, but for how long shall you remain a lightweight and a featherweight and a welterweight? We want you to be in light heavy.
We have had this in musical artists. They tell you this one is forever an upcoming artist.
Surely.
So you remain an upcoming artist up to 60 years.
Where is the up and where is the coming? And I think that I have said this at one time. This state of sustained childhood in which Africa finds herself, never being separated from the diaper, is a bad state. We are mature children. We cannot accept that. And our leaders, so-called, are the ones who keep us in this state where we are either the poorest countries in the world, developing countries in the world. We are always in a state of being using longer term to describe our poverty. And yet, ironically and paradoxically, our leaders are some of the richest in the world, but our countries are some of the poorest in the world. And that, to me, is what I know frustrates you. I know you to be a young Pan-Africanist, and you ask the question, are there enough young Pan-Africanists who are emerging? I travel this continent, and let me tell you, there are emerging young men and women from the continent of Africa who are much better than us.
But suffocated by the same you people.
Oh, they will be suffocated. If you are not suffocated, you don't grow. You must learn to breathe without oxygen.
Claim your space.
Yes, you've got to. If you want oxygen in order to breathe, then you are not worth breathing. So, in my view, you must go out there. You will be suffocated. They will maim you. They'll gag you. But then you must shake up your head and tell them, you gagged me, you tried to maim me, but I'm even stronger. We want you people to work on steroids, which confounds and amazes your enemies. That is why it is also your duty to ensure that as you are being mentored, you mentor other people. It is the great Mohandas Gandhi who said, you may kill me, you even may have my dead body, but you never take my dignity. Yes, and the more, if you kill the Mahatma, there will be many Mahatmas.
So that there is no room for vacuum.
Oh, there cannot be a vacuum. And that to me is the message that I continue to hear through the vicissitudes of time from people like Kwame Nkrumah. When Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown in 1966, and when he is now the honorary co-president of Guinea at the invitation of Ahmed Sékou Touré, he writes many books, but one of the most painful books that he must have written is The Lost Years. He is watching his own country across the border. He is watching coup after coup, Ghana being taken backwards, and there is nothing he can do about it. But today, the names that we speak about, as I speak across this continent, which name do I speak more than the other? Which names? It is Kwame Nkrumah, and Julius Kambarage Nyerere, and Samora Moises Machel, and Thomas Noel Isidore Sankara, because they lived for something. So that is the spirit. So when the Organization of African Unity, now known as the African Union, is celebrating its 60th anniversary, I don't want them to celebrate. I want them to commemorate. There is nothing to celebrate. There is only something to commemorate. And when they are doing so, I hope that on the 25th day, when they assemble there, the leaders will take time to reflect, and they'll be saying that We have given unto ourselves Africa Agenda 2063 and the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, but these are only foundational. Going forward, we must look at Africa that will be bequeathed to our young men and women. And the young men and women must also not wait to be called to the dinner table. If they don't invite you to the dinner table, invite yourself, storm the dinner table, but do so in a manner that will open their eyes, not evoke their anger and then make them destroy you.
No, Prof, let's go back to the real basics now. Let's, for example, talk about silencing the guns. I mean, we have overheard a lot of gun noise. Are there specifics that, in your view, you think that AU has at least done, and say you have this exact example, and you say there was this war, AU intervened, rather than having you hear UN peacekeeping mission? I mean, are there those specifics? Even Congo here itself, I was watching your friend's video, Kambarage Nyerere. He gave a very, very brilliant suggestion and proposal in regards to the war, the Banyamulenge, and between Rwanda and Burundi, rather Rwanda and Congolese conflict about the Banyamulenge. And it's like these people migrated a long time, they have found themselves there, but this is literally Tutsi. But then you find wars, over a smallest thing that any other country would solve. Are there those specifics that you could give examples and say, AU has done this, and you can just stamp yourself and like they have achieved, they are good, so we should celebrate them?
You know, as you are asking the question, my mind was searching and my mind has come out blank. Why? Because the efforts that they have made have not been exclusively. Look at the recent Tigray war, which was led by President Olusegun Obasanjo. I know Olusegun Obasanjo did a good job there. But in the background, you'll find the Americans are still there. Look at the conflict in Cameroon, the conflict in Central African Republic, the skirmishes and the conflict in Mozambique, the conflicts in the Sahelian region, the conflict in South Sudan, in Burkina Faso, the ongoing in Mali, in Niger, and all those other, in the Gambia, all those conflicts, you always have what I call foreign intervention and interference.
It's no longer an invisible hand, it's a visible hand.
Unfortunately, it's no longer even subtle. And it is unfortunate that we have not done so, because once again, African Union is under-resourced. There are few African leaders who are Pan-Africanists.
Are we under-resourced, or we mismanage our resources?
Even we are under-resourced, and even the little we have, we mismanage. So it is a combination of all that. You'll find that the amount of money that we pay to the African Union, we said, I think, that we would contribute 0.25% of our budget to the African Union. How many countries actually pay? With the consequence that the African Union is still being supported by the Chinese, including the construction of our own headquarters. So my own view is that we could do better. But once again, I want to ensure that you do not lose your enthusiasm and you do not lose your faith in institutions. These are the weak moments of the African Union. You and me can critique, and we must critique with the good intention of strengthening. We must not critique with the intention of demoralizing and paralyzing. So some of us, when we do this, it's what I call tough love. We are telling African Union, these are the weak areas. We know your strengths, but we are not going to sing about your strength. We want you to deal with your weaknesses, because when you deal with your weaknesses, you are going to become stronger. But we believe not in destroying those institutions, but helping them become better. Because history has taught us that even those that we look towards as being successful had their moments of depression, had their moments of failure or apparent failure, but they lifted themselves up. There is a speech that I love by Martin Luther King Jr., where he says, sometimes I feel disappointed. But then he concludes, because he was a Christian, he concludes by saying, but there is balm in Gilead, and that balm cures. And I want to repeat that there is balm in Gilead. Perhaps I should say that there's a balm in Uganda, which if applied to our wounds would heal Africa.
About the borderless countries. I mean, you even with these small blocks, I mean, you'll hear IGAD, you'll hear COMESA, you'll hear East African Community. Do you think it is even achievable? It takes us back to having grabbed a bigger chunk that you cannot swallow. Like, so you are there, we are stuck with it. It's too big, it's good, like the food is very delicious, but you have, I mean, beaten a very big chunk to swallow. Do you think it is even achievable, apparently? And if yes, you think, how long would that take? Or what is even blocking it to be even achievable?
Let me tell you, there is those who, when you hear we talk about African unity, we are not naive, we are not simplistic. We are not saying that one day we shall wake up and then we'll say there are no borders. Borders will be there. Even in a united Africa, we'll still have nations. There'll be the Buganda nation, there'll be Ovambo nation, Ovibundu nation, the Temne nation, the Yoruba nation, the Luo nation, the Bunyoro Kitara, the Kakwa. Those nations, those are the beauty. What we are saying is that our continent's economics and politics will not be defined by the negatives of those engagements. They'll be defined by the strengths, so that the cultural beauty of the Toro will be brought to the table in Uganda, and Uganda's beauty will be brought to the table in Ethiopia, and Ethiopia's beauty will be brought to the table in Nukchak in Mauritania. Is it achievable? Yes, it is achievable. Will it eliminate conflict? No. Human being and human interaction is about conflict and mediating conflict. In fact, I dare say that even in heaven, there is this constant conflict between God and Satan, which does not appear to end. It can only be mediated. So if we are created in the image of God, and even in heaven itself there is conflict, how can it be that we think that there will be a conflictless Africa? Our duty is to mediate that conflict in a manner that makes us survive in a dignified manner.
If I may also ask, in regards, do you think like Colonel Muammar Gaddafi was misunderstood, or he didn't take a lot of time to teach and explain to the rest of the leaders, because he was so much pro a common currency? And of course, if you read from, I mean, behind the curtains, they'll tell you that's why, for some reason, of course, amongst others, why his leadership was put down. And if you look at the present Libya, it is just worrying. Is it what these gentlemen in the West are proud of, simply destroying even the little that we have, or we simply do not understand even what we want to achieve?
Ahmed Sékou Touré of Guinea once said, when you hear a white man praising you as a leader of Africa, you must be very worried. It means you are betraying your people.
The moment they begin praising
you, the big moment CNN is saying you are a great leader, BBC, Radio Deutsche Welle, then you must be very worried. And your people, the people you lead, must now begin to know that you have taken the path of betrayal. And Zambia's Simon Kapwepwe once said, let us be very wary of the white man when he comes back as an investor. He is a Trojan horse whose greatest desire is to continue controlling you at all times. Was Gaddafi misunderstood? He was understood very well. And because they understood him, that he meant what he was saying, and he was prepared to do it, and he had the resources to do it, they had to eliminate him. And because he was eliminated, Libya has never been the same again. And it will take time for Libya to stabilize. And I'm sure when they sit in Washington, D.C., and they see Libya, they say, we did it.
Doesn't that also now, I hope we are not conflicting ourselves now, rather contradicting ourselves. In the event that they have destroyed a big wing, that heavyweight, what about these underdogs? When they even they'll be like, if they could destroy him, let's just keep mum, don't even talk about a united Africa, whether, a common currency. Let us just manage our small island and until further notice.
Have you seen hyenas hunt?
Not really.
They hunt as a pack. And when they hunt as a pack, they kill a lion. When they hunt as a pack, they can kill an elephant, they can kill a giraffe, they can kill any animal. Africans must learn something from the hyena.
But there must be that courageous hyena that will take on the mantle and makes that first attempt.
That is you and me. Why can't you be that courageous hyena? And you are.
Humble.
Yes. So it is us. Don't look to anybody else.
Literally, Prof, it confuses all of us that they will invite you to Voice of America or BBC to discuss here, focus on Africa, but discuss in Washington.
Yes.
Like the whole continent does not even have one radio station that discusses problems that are affecting this this continent.
But your own alternative media is also looking at that. Now let's be very practical.
Yeah.
The time is now. I no longer, when you see me speak myself, I critique.
Yeah, sure.
Why do I critique and why do I go into history? I go into history to give context to my prescription. Do I think I have the monopoly of knowledge and wisdom? No, I don't.
You have the courage.
Do I have ideas? Do I think they should be articulated? Do I know? Do I think sometimes I may be wrong? Yes, I do. But I want you to convince me that I'm wrong by giving me alternative set of facts. And if you have a superior idea and superior ideas, I'll abandon my own and come to you. Am I doing something about it? In my own small way, I'm now working with young men and women across the continent of Africa to make my contribution. Can we convert in your TV station
to be pro-Africa?
To be that thing? Yes, we should. So the time is now, particularly for your generation. Nyerere said it in 1997. Our generation's duty was to go out and eliminate the white man. The next generation must now do something else.
Beyond, because now white men are no longer here.
They are no longer there, is to ensure that they fight to liberate Africa totally.
And deal with
when you hear people talking about economic freedom, that is the next frontier, to be economically free, because he or she who feeds you controls you.
Definitely. We have seen our presidents, African presidents, packed in buses in Europe, like, you know.
Those one, they are the other time they were saying that, and after that they go to the coronation of the King of England, and they are treated exactly in the same way. Today, I tweeted when I said that today, when you see European journalists from Europe and America, from CNN, from Al Jazeera, from Radio Deutsche Welle, when they are interviewing our president, they are so condescending, so rude to our president.
Sure.
And our presidents, I'm happy with President Kagame and President Museveni in this regard, and even recently President Ruto, and even President Hage Geingob. I listened to them when they were being interviewed, and they shut them down and told them, please, ask me the things that brought me here. LGBTQ is not the thing you are just about to ask me. Sex against the order of nature is wrong.
But you, again, you have, you have provoked me to ask. We have our own, some young man, in my view, that Africa had some hope in, and this is, Malema.
Yeah.
I watched him. I couldn't believe what he was.
Juju is my friend, and we'll have that.
And you have made.
We'll have that conversation with him. I think Malema.
Manufacturer, because he who feeds you.
Let me. I think Malema is my very good friend.
Yeah,
and
I've seen you so many occasions.
I think that he has a positive agenda which I want to identify with, which I identify with. The economic freedom movement is something that we ought to support. I've heard him saying that LGBTQ is fine, and I don't want to contradict him, to criticize him before I engage him. I want to understand him on one-on-one, because I am this thing called LGBTQ, Norman.
It comes with lots of, lots
lesbian,
of money, lots of...
gay,
yeah, transgender,
transgender, queer, and then intersex.
The alphabetical, alphabetical letters, every now and again they keep adding one more, because it began with
every holy book, even if you want to be religious and spiritual about it, the Bible says it is sex against the order of nature.
Yeah.
The Bhagavad Gita says it is sex against the order of nature. The Quran says it is sex against the order of nature. So, if you are to ask me a single question, which you are not just about to ask me, are you homophobic? My answer is yes. Do I think that those who belong to that club ought to be treated and cured? They are sick. they ought to be cured.
Should be they should have.
And I think that is the point at which we should stop.
No, before we stop, you innovators,
yes.
As they call themselves, and I mean, we have to connect also this to this discussion as well. Artificial intelligence. Some scientists have now even manufactured men and manufactured women. And because before you even finish the war against LGBTQI, there is now another war, artificial women and artificial men, because women is stressed, because also men is stressed. One wonders,
Norman, let me tell you this. I believe that human society has always grown through technology. We were agrarian,
necessary?
Not necessarily. In my view, we moved from so-called first industrial revolution, second industrial revolution, third industrial revolution. We are now in between the fourth industrial revolution and the fifth industrial revolution. But remember that it is not every other technological discovery or advancement that is good for humanity. Nuclear fusion improved humanity, but it is a nuclear bomb that destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Artificial intelligence is a good thing, but we must deploy it within ethical limits.
You limit the level.
And that is what we must deal with, because otherwise we will be creating a Frankenstein monster which we cannot control. So it is the duty of Africa to ensure that we consume artificial intelligence which we control, but do so in a manner that is going to be beneficial for the continent of Africa. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
God bless you.
Our viewers, thank you a lot for
really
keeping it with Alternative Digitalk. Every when we have an opportunity, we shall forever engage Professor LUMUMBA to share. But of course, young people, he's one person that you should, read his books, follow his speeches. Most of them are precise, on to the point. If you want to keep, keep following and believing in what the West brings onto your table, pick what is right and drop what is silly, for lack of another word. And also, that does not mean that everything that is African is also good.
Absolutely, you are
there
right.
There are some African things that are not good, and there are also Western things that are good.
And even Chinese.
And Chinese as well.
Because we are no longer just dealing with Westerners. The Chinese are here, the Russians are here, the Qataris are here, the Turks are here. It is our duty to make a choice. If you are given fish and snakes, you must be able to determine that which is better, snake or fish.
Great, yeah.
It is never that obvious.
And it's either or.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone. Let's keep in touch. My name is Norman Tumhimbise. Keep it Alternative Digitalk.
Thank you.
Thanks, Prof. Once again.
God bless you.
Please.
Thank you.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digital brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk,
as he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too. like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes, it can. Although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.